The world, one day of the year seems to be a day of great joy. Tremendous preparations, multitudes of parties, dancing, loud voices, great joy, seemingly. And yet the world seems to have much anxiety, much fear, much division, and much stress. According to what the scriptures tell us, Christ brought joy to us. Where is the joy? If you go into the mall, you see people rushing, pushing, shoving. They don't want to wait in line even though you've been there before them. They don't care. I'm in a hurry. What happened to joy? What happened to the peace? We've allowed the system of man to overwhelm the memory even of the birth of Christ. If you would ask many people, why Christmas? Because we give gifts. Because I get something from somebody. But do they remember what happened? Do they understand the reason for Christmas? Somebody made December 25 the birthday of Christ. Probably not true. We don't really know what day it was. Possibly at that time they weren't keeping dates like we keep dates today. They were not as organized or as elite as we are. But they sure had a lot more peace and a lot more security than we have. It's amazing. This is a day of joy, supposedly. It's amazing how that we have taken what has been given to us, but we have not counted the cost. I would just like to look at the other side of Christmas, because I think there's a reason why Christmas is as great as it is. Christ was the creator of the world. He created the world. Nothing exists that did not come from him. Nothing. And yet when it came time for his birth, to identify with man, to help man, there was no place for him. Yet he's the one who created everything. Without him, nothing would exist. But yet no credibility given to him, or no thanksgiving given to him. When he was conceived, Joseph and Mary lived in Nazareth. According to the prophecies of the Old Testament, the prophets would tell the story, a Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. Well, the journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem is a 4-day donkey ride. How did they get there? Why would they go there? Why would you take a 4-day donkey ride when you didn't have to? Well, the Roman government says, okay, it's time to take a census. So everybody has to go back to their hometown. Well, Joseph's hometown was Bethlehem. How did this happen? Somebody had a hand in it, and I think it was divine, to get Joseph and Mary from Nazareth to Bethlehem, because that's what was going to be the birthplace of Christ. They made the 4-day journey. They made it. She's pregnant. Can you imagine ladies today taking a 4-day donkey ride when they're pregnant? No way. They don't do that. They hardly move. It's like a sickness or a disease. It's a curse upon them. They don't see the reality of what it is. It's just normal. In Africa, the ladies will go out and work in the field, squat down, give birth, and go right back to working. But our advanced society has made things a little different. We have grown up and become greater. The first Adam, I would hope we remember, he was born of dust. But he became alive when God breathed the breath of life, the Spirit, into him. He was a spirit being. But they failed to maintain what God had given them. But God sent a son, born of the Spirit through Mary, identical, but this son was not going to fail. He was going to do the task that was given to him. Eve, out of lust and greed, hunger for more, even though she was created in the image of God, she wanted to be like God. And she failed to bring creation into existence, the kingdom into existence. She failed. But Mary, a teenager, betrothed, now pregnant, she wasn't anxious. She was excited to be able to fulfill the will of the Father. Totally different picture from Adam and Eve being seen in Mary and Jesus. Something that God brought about in the beginning didn't work for some reason, and I don't question it. That's his business, not mine. But he corrects it with Mary. She wasn't hungry for being something greater. She was willing to be what God wanted her to be. Even to take a 4-day donkey ride when she's pregnant. When they get to Bethlehem, there's no place for them because everybody has come home and every room, every occupiable place has basically been occupied. Scriptures tell us they end up in a stable. Now, whether that's an accurate description or not, we don't know. But it gives us an idea. He wasn't in a 5-star hotel. Here he was, Son of God, King of the universe, not in a royal palace, but he ends up in a stable, a place where animals were kept. The dung, the feces, call it what you want. There he was in the midst of it. And his manger was a feeding trough. And he was wrapped in rags, swaddling clothes. I always thought swaddling clothes were something very soft and something very nice. But when I looked up what swaddling meant, it meant torn, ripped, ragged. This is what he was wrapped in. A manger, a stable, horse, sheep, remains. We call it poop. There he was, the King of Kings, the royal Son of God, in a manger. He had come with a purpose. He'd come to restore what the enemy had destroyed. He come to replace Adam and to bring the will of God into the life of man. He came to change the darkness into light, to bring hope, to bring joy, to bring peace. But he got no welcome. It was a normal thing that if a son was born to a family, when the son was born, the community would bring singers and stand outside the house and sing a song of welcome to the son. But to Jesus, there was no orchestra, no choir, no voice to sing. But God took care of it. He sent the angels. A much higher welcome than would come from man. But yet man did not receive him. Man did not welcome him. No place for him. Yet he was the creator of it all. Not given any honor. No one came to greet him except later, 2 years later, the wise men. They came from a distant country. And yet the prophets had prophesied this for generations. The Messiah was coming. He would be born in Bethlehem. All of this was known. The people knew it, but they were not prepared for it. They were probably murmuring and complaining. We had to come to our hometown to register for the census. Couldn't they come to our place? You know, so many different things. We had to travel all this distance. But yet here he was, following, the parents following the rules, bring him to this place. No royal welcome, no orchestra, no band, no flyers, no banners waving, no lights flashing, unknown, unrecognized, without the praise that should belong to a royal person that's been born. He didn't get that. We look at Christmas full of the joy, full of all the greatness and all the hope that comes to us. But do we realize how we got it? Christ had to go to the lowest degree. If he was going to save everyone, he could not come into a palace because there were those who would not fit in the palace picture. He had to come to the lowest to save all. And he was willing to do that for us. This is why Christmas is so exciting. But we forget sometimes the cost that was paid for us to be able to do this. No place on earth for him. No place. Among the animals, how many of us would be willing to sleep in a place like that? No, we wouldn't feel comfortable. Or we would be afraid of the animal. We wouldn't enjoy the environment. And especially with the Department of Health, they wouldn't allow this to be. Sleeping with the animals, sleeping with the remains of the animals, a child, a baby, exposed to this. But this was what God sent to reach the lives of all mankind. No comfortable blanket, no nice clothes to put on, rags. We don't know where they came from. Probably they were there in the manger, the place been used to clean up maybe from the birth of an animal or something. We don't know. The details of it's not given to us, but it's described swaddling. I always thought that meant it was comfortable, nice, Swaddle, you know. You know how you swaddle something warm? No, this is not what it was. Rags, torn, dirty perhaps, but yet here was the Son of God, the one who created everything, lying in this feeding trough. He created all the earth and all that was on it. Yet there was no place for him when he comes. Why? God had reasons. He knew what he was doing. There's a story that comes out of Europe. A monarch who was ruling at that time, not the time of Christ, but at a certain time. And every once in a while, this king would disappear. And his keepers, people who were watching over him, security, so forth, didn't know where he was. After a while, he would come back. Then again, he would disappear. They finally found him. We found out what he was doing. He was going out incognito among the people. And they said, "Why are you doing this? Don't you realize the danger you are in? For the sake of security, stop it." And his reply was, "How can I rule the people if I don't know their condition, where they're in, what they're in?" I don't know that this is why Christ became man. But he knew he went through everything we would ever go through, tempted by every temptation known to man. Every situation he knew. He understood us. He understands us. This is why he could defend us, why he could represent us before the Father, because he went through the things for us. He came and became one with us. He came not only to share those things, but also to show us who we were supposed to be. How God had created man in the very beginning. The blessings that were given to man, the power created in the image of God, the likeness of God. Strengthened with power and might. Given all authority, heaven and earth. This is who man was. But Christ came and understood where we were. He was able to redeem us and to set us free. Yes, he had to go to the cross. It was not pleasant. His birth was not pleasant. His life was not a life of royalty. He got no special favors. He struggled as man would struggle. Even registering in the census, being then subject to paying taxes. He didn't have an exemption. He went through all of these things. And it says to me, and I believe it should say to us, regardless of how life seems to give us hard times, we can conquer them. We can overcome them, and we can turn them into something glorious if we have the right attitude. Instead of the murmuring, the complaining, instead of saying, "I can't handle this," realize we are conquerors, we are overcomers. We can conquer anything. Greater is he who is with us than he who is against us. To erase that feeling of worthlessness, to feel that we can't handle anything, but to realize if Christ went through this, he was in the flesh. He had no special favors. He was in the flesh. He only had what God had given man in the beginning. But look what he did with it. It's a challenge to us. It's an instruction to us. It's a gift to us so that we do not question, we do not have to ask. We can see it in his life. Didn't matter what came his way, he could handle it. Even the cross he could handle. He did not fight back. He did not curse them. He did not attack them. He paid the price because he knew that if he did the right thing, that the result would be so awesome that it would affect every human being that would ever exist, from Adam to whoever would be the last. He understood this. It should be that which we understand also, that we can face these trials. We can face these difficulties. They are not greater than we are. God in us is greater than all of these things. The flesh is weak, yes, but the Spirit quickens the flesh to life. It's all in an attitude of understanding and having been given what God has given to us. Angels appeared to the shepherds. The shepherds were the lowest of society at that time. Especially the religious leaders despised them because they would not keep the law. They didn't come to the temple every 3 hours to pray. They didn't bring their offerings into the temple. They didn't wash their hands every 5 minutes. They didn't do that. And they hated them because they didn't follow the rules and the regulations. But who did the angels appear to? Not the religious leaders, not the scribes, not the Pharisees, not the high priest. Who did he appear to? Who did they appear to? The shepherds. The lowly. He came to reach the lowest. Society had come very low. The birth of Christ in the manger shows us how low man had come. But yet Christ came to the lowest. He came to redeem us, to set us free. He came to restore humanity back to its level of creation. Shepherds probably were fairly close to Bethlehem because of the identity of what happened. Possibly, there's no record of this, but possibly the shepherds were keeping the lambs that were eventually taken to the temple for the sacrifices. They had to protect the lambs. They had to be spotless. This was their task, and this is what they were doing. Yet they were downcast because of the work they were doing. They weren't given praise. They weren't given honor. They were given only demands. But they were the ones who sacrificed, who brought the lambs that were sacrificed to the temple. Could this not also be the blessing of God by sending the angels to them? Because they were providing the sacrifice that was taking care of the sins of the people at that time. Now, the sacrifice has been presented. So the shepherds are the ones who get the blessing. They get the message first when no one else will pay attention to it. The lowest. Now, this to me says something to us, because we want to be the highest. We want to have people look up to us and respect us. We want special things. We want special clothes. We want special jewelry. We want everything different. We want to be elite, better than everybody else. Christ came not to be better than anybody. He came to identify with the lowest. And in identifying with the lowest, he brought great joy to all of us. This was the price he paid for us. This is why we could have Christmas Day. And as I said earlier, Christmas Day is not a day. It's a life. Today is Christmas. Next Sunday is New Year. Wrong. It's new life. Not a year, life. You could tell man created all these things at the time because he didn't understand everything. But yet there's some working of God in the midst of it. Because 1 week from the birth comes new year. More than new year, it's new life for all of us. And Christmas is every day. And every day is a new life with Christ. This is the hope we have. This is the assurance that is ours. We don't have to be rushing through the malls, pushing, shoving people. Get it out of my way, I'm in a hurry, I'm busy, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. No, we have peace because Christ has done the work for us. He has paid the price. He's given to us new life, and we should be thankful for it. Doesn't mean that we should never celebrate. I'm not saying that. But the celebration is not what's important. It's the reality of what Christ did for us. He gave to us new life. Took away the old. Our mind's still telling us all the mistakes we've made and all the failures we've done and how we are worthless. No. That person living in the big house, the mansion, the castle, they're no better than anyone else. They're not any greater. The lowest man has the same equality as God, as far as God is concerned, to the one who thinks they are the most important. And you'll notice the ones who feel that they are so important, they think they can tell everybody else what to do. But as they tell people what to do, most of the time, they don't know what they're talking about. We just read in, I think it was the Psalm, the earth is established and it will not be moved. And yet there are those telling us we're destroying it. Going to be wiped away. I choose to believe what God says. He won't fail us. We don't need to be anxious. We don't need to be anxious. He's greater than we can imagine. But I wanted us to understand why we have such hope and such joy. Because he faced the issues. He went to the lowest of the low to set them free. To take away the bondage, the slavery that was placed upon mankind, to give us new life. This is the hope we have in Christ. And so we rejoice. We rejoice in him. But with thanksgiving because of the price he paid for us. We want to make use of it. We don't want to deny it. But we want to be thankful for it. It's not us. It's him. He did it all for us. And so when we talk about Christmas, be thankful. Be thankful that God loved us so much. He was willing to send his son. Not to a palace, not to a castle, but to a manger. To the lowest of the low, the shepherds. That he could touch all mankind. All are his family. His sons, his daughters. He wanted to save them all. And he did for us. And so let us rejoice, giving him praise, honor, and glory.